Well, hi everybody. It is noon Eastern time, and that means 9 a.m. on the left coast, 10 a.m. I think in Alberta, uh, 11 I think in Winnipeg, and in Australia I think it's 15 or 16 hours later, just in case you're wondering. So I'm glad to see everybody, and I hope people are having some time to get a little bit of summer vacation in. There's no ROI group meeting next month in August. That's a big holiday month for a lot of people, including yours truly. And I'm going to try and get a week to go family camping with my family. And we usually go to Red Pine Camp on Golden Lake, and it's pretty primitive, but no cell phones, no computers, just canoes and kayaks and things like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to finally, I hope, get to my 70 Fearless Future Predictions, which is coming up soon. But this morning I woke up and I just couldn't resist. I wanted to do one more real estate business model. Some people count sheep to go to sleep. One sheep, two sheep, three sheep. I invent business models, and so I'm going to share my screen with you guys. You all know where the chat box is, so if you want to find, ask me a question or whatever, just put something in the chat box. Christian is saying he's here for 15 minutes and I've got to do the whole presentation in the next 13 minutes. Okay, Christian, I'll do my best.
I know you can do it, Bruce.
Well, you have more confidence in me than I have in me. All right, so let me share my screen. The session, as you know, is being recorded. And part of the reason I wanted to do this particular model is it's like super, super, super hot. I've got lots of folks in Canada and the United States pursuing this model. I would guess that a lot of people have heard me talk about it before, so some of it might be repetitive, but a lot of it is new. And it's based on the idea, it's a very simple business model. Some of the business models I've been developing in real estate are actually pretty complicated, but this one is not. It's about buying a home, a residence, whatever, which may already have a, sort of a detached garage, or at least it has a backyard of some sort, and you could add a workshop in the backyard. And you've heard me talk about it before, but I have a reason for doing it, a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to go over it again for folks to whom it is new. And second of all, I actually have a couple of case studies in one property that's available that demonstrates what this is all about, and what to go about, what you should look for if you're going to go down this road. And I've always had it in my mind that somebody will do this in a city where they live, whether it's in Los Angeles, or it's in New Mexico, or it's in British Columbia, or whatever, and that they will come to dominate the backyard workshop model. So that somebody will say, oh, if you want a backyard workshop in Ottawa or Tallahassee, Florida, you go and see these guys. I think it's that strong a model. Just about everybody I know has some kind of side hustle going on. So it's a live, work, play, real estate, industrial home builder business model. Industrial home builder is a terrible term, but it's the only term I could come up with. And I actually have one available now called, located at 2159 Richmond Road in Franktown, Ontario. But first I wanted to show, this is a friend of mine, Nick Katchmar. He is a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning operator, HVAC technician. He runs a very successful business, and he is very typical of the kind of consumer that we're talking about. Now, this could be something that an investor owns and rents to a Nick Katchmar, or it could be something that you have purchased, you've added a backyard workshop, and then you sell to it Nick Katchmar. So there's two different kinds of models, right? People like me like being investors and landlords, so I would buy, I own property like this where I own it, and I rent it to somebody who needs to live and work in the same place. But it also opens up a tremendous market to sell some of your properties if that's something you're interested in doing. And here's Nick. He runs, it used to be called Master Flow Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning. I think he's renamed it to Kemptville So this is in a small town about an hour south of Ottawa. And you can see he has a bungalow here on the right-hand side. And in behind, he built a really beautiful workshop for himself. All right, so this is one where Nick owns it and operates it as well. This is just a little bit of a closer view to the workshop. It's like a story and a half backyard workshop. And I have to tell you that he got it approved as a storage building, but somehow or other it might have a little bit more uses than just for storage. This is my old Saab here, parked right next to one of Nick's trucks. This is just another shot of the bungalow. And one of the things I found very interesting about this property is a corner property, so it allowed him to have an access to the residence on site and an access to the workshop that are different, right? So this, you go down this gravel road, there's the access to the workshop. And if you can follow my cursor, you come around the front, that's an access to the house. And as you guys know, I always like, whether it's an industrial use, a residential use, really almost anything, retail even, I like adding games. And, you know, I've got this theory that families that play together stay together, tenants that play together stay together. I think having some playtime is really important. So sure enough, when I go and visit Nick, I take a picture. He's got a dartboard. He's got some other things there. The picture on the right here just shows you what so many of my clients are doing today, which is they're getting rid of keys. You know, I am getting rid of keys. And so you have a key padlock. That's just one of the technologies that really simplifies life for you as a landlord or you as an owner. He uses a kind of a European style wall unit, which provides air conditioning. And I like these units. I'm developing a coach house in Belleville. And in the coach house, we're going to use room by room air conditioning like this, because my wife likes her room really cold and I like mine a little bit warmer. So we're going to satisfy both of us by having room-centric air conditioning. So that's what Nick did. I don't know why I took this picture. I just thought it was cute. Just going to check. And Christian points out quite rightly that there are mini splits. In fact, I'm actually doing a cabin right now. EJ, you'll be interested in this. In the cabin, we're using mini splits as well, which means that they provide both heating and cooling. And thanks for that, Christian. And I just wanted to show you some of the playful elements that Nick had here. His mailbox looks like, I guess, a little farm. There's just another picture of looking down from the loft. You can see it wasn't quite finished when I went there. It's been, since this picture was taken, it's been drywall, but you can see it's a pretty active workshop and storage building. He's, you know, it's got all the conveniences of home. He's got a microwave and he's got a bar fridge in there. So it's a bit of a man cave too, which is kind of cool. And then here's a picture of Nick in the loft office looking pretty happy with the live work situation. Okay, in the next paragraph, this is just still on the same grounds. He's got his lawn chairs, he's got his little fire pit going. So the idea of adding a playland, that's just the term I use, is really important. Again, families, tenants, people that play together tend to stay together. So this is a place where you can go and have a little bit of a fire and play your guitar or your banjo. He's got some backyard homesteading going on here. Again, another really great animation. My oldest son, who lives in Australia with his two little boys, tells me that when you grow your own fruits and vegetables and nuts, the return on that is 1,000% ROI. That's what he says. He's an economist for the Australian government, so I think I trust him on that. 1,000% ROI. That's pretty good. So if you have a backyard homestead, you know what I'm talking about. And in terms of playland, you just can't go wrong. Again, whether it's a retail plaza that you own, an office building that you own, an industrial building that you own, or you're just renting to tenants, do something that conveys fun, right? So outdoor ping pong. Maybe you can put a volleyball court in, play badminton. The rage these days is pickleball. Brad Cartier, I guess you guys know, he's one of the young men I coach, and he is developing an eco resort called Hammond Hill. I think, EJ, you went to visit. Did you like it?
Yeah, actually, it's very good.
Yeah, it's
He
going to be
showed us
fantastic.
the common amenities and such. So
So it's not fully developed yet. It's got a pioneer village. It's going to have some bunkies and cottages, and it's still fledgling. It hasn't even opened yet, so it's still in its infancy. But one of the things I suggested to them, EJ, when I went to visit on last Saturday, was that they add a pickleball court, because it's a huge deal these days, and people will come from all over at any age to play pickleball. All right, so this is one of the properties I actually have available, and I wanted to show you, if I was a buyer, what I would look for. And this is owned by Gary and Mary Greer. They've been clients of mine for many years. And this is now they're getting a little bit older, and they would like to sell this. And this is a perfect example, in my opinion, or a good example anyway, of what you should and could look for as an investor, as somebody who wants to, be in this business. So this is a home in Franktown, which is about, I think, about 25 minutes west of the Canadian Tire Center, where the Ottawa Senators play. It's about 12 or 15 minutes from Carleton Place. And it has 2 apartments in it now, an upper unit and a lower unit, and it has a big garage. And so each of the tenants that they have will have their own indoor parking space. It's just a picture of the backyard, and I really like the fact that you can get access to this house from all kinds of different places. Every time you add a window in a build, a renovation or a new build that you're doing, think about maybe not putting a window there, but putting a door there. Every time you add a door to the outside, you seem to add value. And that's an old style of design and development that people have forgotten about. Anyway, this is just the rear view of the property. Here are the floor plans. This is the upper unit, which is, I guess, 2 bedrooms, dining room, kitchen, living room, with the garage being here. This is the lower unit, which actually I think has 3 bedrooms and a family room and a kitchen, and just 1 bath here, and I guess I don't know, 1 bath here, I suppose. Just another picture showing the double garage. Again, one side belongs to the lower unit, one side belongs to the upper unit. But this is the most important part of this little presentation on Franktown that I'm doing. And that is, Mary and Gary added this building. It has 5 storage lockers here, and it has a loft which has more storage in here. And I think these are just, again, storage sheds that they rent. This is a very powerful, simple, but powerful animation that you can add to just about any property. I put Amish style sheds in the backyard of my properties. If it's a duplex, I'll have a shed that has a door on one side, a door on the other side, a divider down the middle. And yeah, Tim says, woo to storage, thank you. It's an amazing animation. It has tremendous cap rate. It boosts your return on investment. Very simple to rent. It's not like trying to run Facebook or, I don't know, TikTok or something like that. Those are very complicated businesses to run. This is not. And you'll see I have some numbers that I'll show you in a minute. What's interesting about this property is that it's quite big. So I think it's over 2 acres. I think 2.2 acres, if my memory serves me right. And if Mary and Gary were younger, they would probably, significantly expand this and certainly add some workshop space. Just another picture of I guess those are the storage sheds. There's 2 of them there. And then you can go up to the loft and again, more storage there. Franktown's a cute little town. I actually quite like it. It's called the Lilac capital of Canada, or of Ontario, excuse me. And it has, it has the things that little towns have. There's a total of 129 lots in Franktown. I actually counted it. So it's a cute little town, and it's been around for forever. And I like small towns as long as they're within an hour or 2 of a larger center. All right. So I did some mapping this morning. Here's the Canadian Tire Center where the Sens play in the west end of Ottawa. It's called Canada. And you go down Highway 7, hit Carleton Place, turn left, and you're in Franktown. That's 26 minutes. And like I said, it's about 12 minutes from Carleton Place, which is a sweetheart of a little town as well. So what does this business model look like? Again, what I wanted to emphasize to everybody, and I've been emphasizing this over and over and over again, is that if you're going to be a real estate investor, most people think, oh, I could buy a townhouse and rent it out, or I could buy a house and rent it out. Yeah, that's just, but that's not really a business model. It's, you know, if you buy a house in Toronto, it's scary how much they cost and how little they make. You know, cap rates might be 3%, 3.5%, 2.5%. They're not very good. And so that to me isn't really, oh, geez, Tim says 1%, thanks, Tim. But 1 or 2%, you know, you put your money in the bank and you can get 1 or 2% and not have to worry about blocked toilets and stuff like that. So a business model is all about something that adds differentiated value. So it differentiates you from your competition, you know, and is something that's scalable and repeatable. All right, underlying word, scalable and repeatable. And if you think about this business model, you've got a primary residence at Mary and Gary's place. You've got an accessory dwelling unit, so it's an apartment. You've got the storage sheds. You've got potential to build workshops there. You could have a Playland there. There's lots of room for that. You could add tech packages. You know, you guys know I like tech packages. And the last thing is something I'm going to show you. You could even add what I quote urban glamping. And I'll talk more about that in a second. That is a business model of sorts with lots of differentiated value. So in terms of workshops, you know, I don't mean you're building something that's really expensive and hard to actually build. Putting up workshops like this, you know, some of my clients are doing it for $65, $75, $85 a square foot, which is really actually pretty good in this circumstance. And a workshop like this could be 800 square feet, 1,000 square feet, could be 400 square feet, could be 1,600 square feet. It's probably not going to be 10,000 square feet. And the workshops can be as small as 200 square feet or as large as maybe 1,500 square feet or possibly 2,000. I'm just going to check this again. Let's see what we've got here. What are your thoughts on adding shipping containers onto properties and designing them as office or storage facilities? I like that a lot. And in fact, I think somewhere in here, I'm going to deal with that. But, you know, so this could be used by one group or one person, but it could also be shared, right? Like you can divide it in 100 different ways. So workshops could be, you know, for a guy like this, he's kind of a maker. I just rented one of, I have a bunch of these. I just rented one of my workshops to the dearest, sweetest old guy. He's probably my age, so you know what I'm talking about. He makes, I didn't know anything about it, cigar box guitars. Cigar box guitars. So I thought that was like kind of a brand or something. It's not. He actually buys these like unbelievable, like old cigar boxes, you know, I don't know, from Cuba or whatever, and he turns them into guitars. And oh my gosh, the sound on them is unbelievable. My son-in-law, Patrick Kerr, wants to buy one. So, you know, there you go. So there's just an infinite number of people with side hustles and they need small workshops. Doug Lewis is his name. He rented one from me. And it's about 200 square feet, so not very big, but he's really happy with it, and I'll talk more about it. We want a concert from Doug on one of his cigar boxes. So there you go. Now, this is something that I thought of as well for this property, because some of my clients have been doing it. I've got clients in Porto, that's in Portugal, northern Portugal, clients in BC and elsewhere who are adding what I call backyard yurts. So, you know, you could, you know, glamping is a huge deal. And these particular yurts that you're seeing on the screen are built, and I've talked about this before, they're actually fabricated by a former student of mine, Anissa Zato, in Pickering. She runs a company called Yurtas. And I think you could buy them and set them up for about 20 grand. They can be quite beautiful. They're good down to -40. You can see in the bottom left-hand side here, they have a wood stove or a propane stove or a natural gas stove inside, so they're nice and toasty and warm. Wintertime glamping is just almost as popular as summertime. I can't believe it, but it's true. And, you know, people are getting ridiculous amounts of money for these things. And if you have a 2-acre property in Franktown, golly, I might add 1 or 2 of these. Okay, so I did some homework this morning on this particular property. If anybody's interested in the spreadsheet or anybody's interested in the property, you can always reach out to me. So it is currently listed for $699,500. You'd pay $10,465 in land transfer tax, about $1,500 for legal costs, title insurance, and other disbursements. So you'd be in for about $711,000 to buy this particular property. You probably can rent out the lower level. I think it is actually rented for $1,400. The upper level is currently vacant, which I think is a good thing. So you probably get just under $2,000 for that. The storage units are produced, they're all leased. They're producing about $1,250 a month in income. So the gross income on this property is about $4,600. And I deducted 34% of that for your operating costs, property taxes, property management, insurance, etc. So you'd probably end up with about $3,000 of net operating income, about $36,000 a year. And it gives you a cap rate on this property, if somebody were to buy it, at about 5.1% going in. Now, for those of you who've been paying attention to the ROI group for the last year or so, you know that I put a minimum limit of 6%. So this doesn't quite make the 6% number. It's 5.1%. I think 6% would be, in most cases, what you would be looking for or more. But there are some animations that you can do. Animation, you remember, is my word for things that you can do to improve cash flow. And for example, you could put a workshop here. So I just said, what if we were to build a 1,425 square foot workshop? Maybe there'd be 3 spaces in there of 475 square feet. Just in my experience recently, that is kind of like the optimal for rent. 200 is probably a little small, 1,000 is too big. So this seems to be the sweet spot. And I put in a construction cost number of $135, not $85. And the reason is I am a retail buyer. I don't have time to go out and actually do a lot of the stuff myself. But a lot of the people I coach, they're actually on site, they're doing their own, they're representing themselves, they're being their own foreman, they're maybe doing some of the work themselves, they're, getting, 5 quotes. So they might be able to do it considerably cheaper than me. In fact, I'm sure they can. So, but I put in $135, but that's all inclusive. It includes your design, your building permit, your soft costs, engineering costs, architecture, design costs, and whatever financing. So it would cost me about $190,000 to do this. And again, I know for a fact I've got clients who can do it cheaper than that. But for me, it would be about that. And you can get $2 per square foot per month. That's what I've been getting on my workshops in this area, plus utilities and tech package. So they would pay $2 per square foot or $24 per square foot per year, plus HST. You've got to remember this is commercial, so it's plus HST. Residential rents in Ontario do not attract HST, but commercial rents do. That's good news, because HST is your friend if you're a business owner in Ontario. You actually make money on it. It's too complicated right now to go into, but trust me on this, that's a good thing. The fact that you can't charge HST on residential rents means you cannot use any of your input tax credits against your rental income in residential buildings, but you can in commercial. So anyway, so that works out to about $2,850 a month, plus utilities, plus the tech package, $34,200 a year. And because they're paying their utilities and tech package on top, I only deducted 17% for operating costs here. I came up with net operating income of about $28,000. So these workshop buildings really have decent cap rates. It looks like it would be around 14 or 15%. Well, that's really good. And don't forget, that's 14 or 15% for forever. Some people are doing really well with their stock market investments and their mutual funds. I have not. If I pick a stock, it's guaranteed to go down. My mutual funds basically suck. So I haven't found anything in my personal experience to beat real estate, but some people have done better than me in mutual funds and stock market investing. So that's the cap rate just on the workshop if you added it to this property. And then if you blend it, right, if you add the net operating income from the house and the storage sheds, et cetera, Now you're at 7.2% cap rate. All right, so now you're above the 6% target that I established. And if you want the spreadsheet, I put it on Dropbox. Don't bother about trying to write down this link. Just email me. I think you all have my email address, bruce@brucemfirestone.com, and I'll send you the spreadsheet so you can play around with it. But this is the typical kind of analysis that I do. It doesn't matter what I'm buying, whether I'm buying an historic building in downtown Belleville, or I'm buying another house in wherever, another duplex or triplex, always the same. So my summary on this is it's one of my favorite real estate business models. Adding workshops in residential backyards so tenants can live, work, and play in one location, I think is a winning model, and it's not complicated. It's a way for investors, landlords, and owners to boost their cap rates by animating them this way. A bazillion people have these side hustles. And the other thing that I think is really important is to think about what Robert Kiyosaki, Mr. Rich Dad, Poor Dad said. He said that your house is a liability because when you lose your job, it sucks money out of your jeans. It's not an asset. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but that is his point of view. So if you think about it, the house is a liability, but the workshop is an asset, because when you lose your job, you can just focus on your side hustle, right? One of my daughters lost her job during the pandemic, and she is a designer. She's a clothing designer, and she runs a small business called Proof, and it's taking off on Instagram like crazy. And so she did exactly that, right? You lose your job, and she needs a workshop. Trust me on that. So I'm hoping that she's actually going to live in the bunkie that I'm building next to one of my buildings, where I do have workshops, so she can live and work in the same place. But of course, she's asking for free rent. So don't ask me what the cap rate is on my daughter's place. It's probably going to be 0. But that's the way it is when you're a dad, right? And just for the young people on the call, when you have children, it's a life sentence, right? There you go. So anyway, the other thing that I have found is that if you have a place for somebody to live and you have a workshop where they can make some money and live and work, so they have the liability, but they have the asset too, they're probably going to stay longer, and they're probably going to be happier. And if they're making money, they could pay more rent. Right? So happier tenants that stay longer pay more rent. That sounds like a winning formula to me. I really like this model. And I know a lot of you guys have heard it before, or at least bits of it, but I thought I'd do it again today. And another way to look at this model is that it's a way to live for free. I'm big on living for free. And, so if you were to buy a place like this one on Richmond Road, you could live in one of the 2 apartments, rent out the other apartment, rent out the storage lockers, build yourself a workshop, rent that out, and you probably would end up living for free, right? That you're tenant in the accessory dwelling unit, you're tenant in your storage units, and you're tenants in the workshops would probably give you enough money. You're living for free. That to me sounds like a winning formula in terms of trying to support yourself and your family. So I call it home free or free home. If you want more information on this property, my buddy there, Nick Cripps, who works with me at Royal LePage, you can certainly contact him. He's got it listed for sale. You can see his number there, 613-863-6595, and Nick at terraceinvestments.com. And for those of you, the young people on this call won't know, Terrace Investments was the first parent company of the Ottawa Senators. And Nick and I and Simon Case have brought it back to life. It was formed by my family in 1956 and was quite a successful real estate company, bought the expansion franchise, built the Canadian Tire Center, and then went broke in the mid-2000s when NHL payrolls exploded from $6.6 million to 84, 85 million. Don't try that at home. So we brought it back to life, and so there's his email, Nick at terraceinvestments.com. It is active on MLS. Yes, it is 123-8479. So if you wanted to look it up, you can. 123 8479. And this is the last, I think, of the models that I wanted to show you, just to prove that people are doing it. This is a building that was bought by two clients of mine, Alex Culligan and Stefan. So it was, believe it or not, a convenience store at one point. This was a convenience store, like a village inn. It's in Greeley. It's a small village. And it had a detached garage. So if you were going to pursue this model, what you're looking for is the fastest way to get into this is, and you can search MLS if you have a realtor who knows what he or she is doing. You could search MLS. EJ, you probably know this. You can search MLS for detached garages, and you'll come up with incredible listings. So you don't actually have to build a damn thing, right? So Alex and Stefan did that with help from, I think, Nick Cripps and Simon Case, and they found this really crazy old building, like way over 100 years old. And right now, it's got a 1-bedroom apartment here, a 4-bedroom apartment up here, believe it or not, a 300 square foot co-working space right down here, and then this detached garage, which is an independent workshop, at least independently. All right, that is pretty cool. That's just a closer view of the house. And that's just a little bit closer view of the detached workshop. I got another chat here. If anyone wants me to do a search in Ontario, happy to help. Who did that come from? I don't know. From everyone to everyone. I don't know who that was from. Who is it? It's Chris. Chris who? Put your name in there, brother. All right. So that's pretty cool. So you have over here, can you see, guys, over here? It's kind of hard to see on your screen maybe, but there is a person door here and another small overhead door here. It was perfectly set up as a workshop, but most people just use it as a garage. But if you put a workshop in there, you know, it's insulated, it's got some heat. Usually they don't have air conditioning, some do, but most do not. You know, that is a much higher value use. You'll get a lot more rent for it. But what I wanted to show you is the next picture. This particular site is a little bit smaller than the one that's owned by Mary Greer and Gary Greer. This is Simon Case here. That's Stefan Gonthier. That's Alex Culligan. The site is about 1.6 acres. It's quite big. You know, it's like a house and a workshop on 1.6 acres. It's really quite beautiful. And so I talked to Alex and Stefan. These are the two young men I coach. And I talked to them about this model. And I said, you guys ought to build a workshop in the backyard, never thinking they would build one this size. This thing is humongous. It's like 1,600 square feet. It's humongous. And so you can see the footing and foundation here. It was a kit that they bought. It's called a Quonset hut. It's a kit. You can see all the pieces the members are lying on their side here. They're going to be propped up, I think, in the next shot. This is Alex and Stefan working on the site here. This is Alex proudly showing it as it pops up, and it looks a little bit like an accordion. But these have been in use since World War II. I think the U.S. Army has still got Quonset huts all over the Pacific when they were fighting in World War II. So this is Alex proudly standing next to this building as it's under construction. And you can see one of the things I asked the boys to do was to put an overhead door and a person door on either end of it. Now, the reason I did that is maybe people want to drive in one side and out the other side, or maybe you want to divide it in some way. Because this thing is so big, it might be difficult to find one 1,600 square foot user. So you could find one party that wanted, say, 1,000 and another party that wanted 600 square feet. So you could put a divider down the middle and you could have two tenants instead of one. Then you can see they started to gravel the driveway, and so you can, you know, drive in there and park and deliver materials and take materials away. You can see it's nearing completion here. Person door, overhead door. And I just want to emphasize again, this is another little tiny animation where you put lights in your overhead door. Adding natural light to a building, I don't care what it is, adds a lot of value, even if it's just minimal, right? So this is the inside now. It's obviously got electricity. You can see all the electricity that they have here, the outlets. And you can see that they do in fact have the ability to divide it into two. Electricity, as I said, they've got, you know, I don't know what the service is here, probably 100 amp service. That's just another shot. Okay, so that's pretty clear. And by the way, they did rent the thing out, but to one user, it was surprising to me that they got a user, and it turned out to be local fellows, local men and women who do cannabis research. They're not growing cannabis in here, but they're doing cannabis research. So if you have seeds that you think, or plants that you think are very potent or can cure cancer or whatever, you send them to this. They have a lab in here, believe it or not, and they test cannabis plants and seeds for, I don't know, all the different things, healing properties, potency, whatever. I'm not an expert, but that's what they do. But the other thing I wanted to show you is again, how this animation thing leads you in ways, in directions that might surprise you. And I'll give you an example of, nothing to do with this, I'll give you an example of what happened recently. I'll just stop sharing for a minute so you can see my handsome face. I'll give you an example recently. I coach a national mini office company based in North Vancouver. And they have they bought another mini storage place, you know, those little mini storage places. You open the garage door, you put your stuff in, close it, put a lock on it. And they had like an old house owner, had been abandoned forever. Had about 3 feet of water in the basement, so it looked like it was pretty much at the end of its life. But they have rehabilitated it, and I mean, I didn't know, but they came up with this idea on their own. They told me last week. They have rehabilitated it. And they put that thing in the basement. Once they had cleared out 3 feet of water, they have storage containers, so they have heated storage now, which is cool. But on the upstairs, and they got permission from the municipality to convert it to an apartment. They put that on Airbnb. I said, Airbnb at a mini storage place? Who in the heck would ever want that? It turns out that there's lots of contractors who are brought into town, into this particular town, you know, for 2 months or 3 months to do a job, and they're looking for an Airbnb, and they need a storage locker for their stuff, right? And so it's amazing. It's full, and it's, what good news is, it's not like 3-day reservations, because that's a lot of work. You know, they get 1 and 2 and 3 month reservations from contractors coming into town to do work, and they need. So who knew that Airbnb and mini storage, you know, could work together? I didn't know that. So there you go. I learned something. Oh, we'll get some more. Tim says, or somebody says, would never thought. I did not think of that. There you go. Oh, Christine, thank you for that. Okay, so let's go back. I'm almost done with this. Won't take too much longer on this. So this is one of the ladies in this area, Eastern Ontario, who really started the glamping thing a few years ago now. I mean, she was really a pioneer. And her glamping tents are nice, but they're not spectacular. I'm hoping in the fall that we're going to have a presentation from Whispering Springs. Whispering Springs is close to Toronto, and oh my gosh, when you see what they do, it'll blow your mind. They've got glamping up in the trees now. They got treehouse glamping things that are just like wow. So we'll have more on glamping in the fall when we get back together again, guys. But for now, anyway, this lady pioneered. But what blew me away was the price. You know, it's a tent. You know, $405 a night. I think that's for 2 people. Yeah, 2-person occupancy. It called 2 paths for $405, and then Big Rock, $450 per night. I thought, this is amazing, and I can tell you that okay, somebody's going. Oh, thank you. So I can tell you that I actually kind of get now that Airbnb and short-term rentals is really something special, at least from the point of view of return on investment. Because, you know, I'm doing a few projects, maybe even another one soon in Belleville, and I go there and I stay in an Airbnbs when I need to do a little bit of work on these projects myself. And, you know, even the most modest Airbnb in Belleville is $200 or $300 a night, which, you know, is pretty expensive. But anyway, $450 for a tent seemed a little bit rich to me, but there you go. And so, you know, you can look at glamping tents like this, and they're very nice. Obviously, they're not really tents. You can have a sit-down dinner. You get in your hot tub here. You can eat outside. You know, they're really quite nice. But things like this are only good in Eastern Ontario for 113 nights because, you know, we're just too friggin' cold the rest of the year. So there I was standing, this is, now we're going back to Greeley. So there I was standing there with Alex and Stefan, and I think Simon Case was with us too. And I'm looking at this beautiful property, and there's this little meadow here. I'm thinking, what could you do with this? You know, you've got the 4-bedroom apartment, you've got the 1-bedroom apartment, you've got the co-working space, you've got the original workshop, now you got this giant workshop in the back. Is there anything else you could do? And sure enough, I said, why don't we do this? So I'm proud of my animation, so I'll go back. All right, here we go. There we go. What if we were to put 3 glamping tents in this meadow? And they go, ooh, would anybody want that? I said, yes, urban glamping is becoming a thing. And then I said, well, maybe what we wouldn't do is maybe we wouldn't go with these beautiful summertime glamping tents. Maybe what we would do is we'd put some yurtas in there. This is just a picture I took. I'll go back here. So if you go to the right of the screen here, I call this a waterfront property because there's a little stream on it. So this is just a picture I took of a tiny little stream. So it's waterfront. And I said to the boys, Alex and Stefan, you know, maybe you could buy some of these yurts from Yurta, from Anissa, and they're good year-round. So that would be quite something if they could do that. Then they asked me, well, how do you provide a bathroom? You know, because bathrooms can be pretty expensive. You could go with composting toilets and other kinds of things. But one of the things I like is if you have a house, you can build a bathroom that has a door to the inside and a door to the outside. That's how they used to do them in the old farmhouses, right? If you had a bathroom. So the boys or the girls could come in, you know, from the fields or from wherever, picking up eggs from the hen house. And they wouldn't have to go through the whole house. They could just go to use the facilities from the outside and that. So I think, you know, some of the designs that we saw, you know, 150 years ago, I think there's a lot of room for that today. All right, so that could be a double-loaded bathroom. And I think that's enough at this point. I think you guys get the message of what I'm talking about. Are there any other questions before we get on to the next bit? Do you want to type any questions, or you want to unmute yourself? I got one in the chat box here. Fearless Prediction, says Tim. Anything else before we move on? All right. Oh, let's see. Oh, we got one. Here we are. Does this workshop just allow you to have higher rents for residential tenants, or do you rent the workshops to other people that are not tenants? Ooh, who asked that? I guess if I blow it up, I can find out. That's from Benji. Well, Benji, I really hate you for asking that question. So the answer to that is it depends. In many, many cities, municipalities, towns, townships, and counties in Canada and the United States, work from home is legal. I mean, during the pandemic, even if some municipality said you couldn't work from home, nobody would have paid any attention to those rules. Some of you may know I'm working on a new learning outcome novel called Twilight Zoned. Not Twilight Zone, Twilight Zoned. Because I'm not a big fan of zoning bylaws. I think they've really restricted creativity and have really handicapped our cities. But having said that, what was your question, Benji? I better remember it.
Yeah. My question was just whether these workshops are intended just to have a higher rents for residential tenants.
I went off. I was writing my novel, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It's about a young person who gets into a lot of trouble because he is always breaking zoning bylaws and ordinances. So Twilight Zone is it's a story, but it's supposed to teach people something. So work from home in most cities and towns, counties and townships in Canada, the United States is legal, and home-based businesses are also legal almost everywhere, not everywhere. Gated communities in the United States have more rules than porcupines have quills. And so probably work from home and certainly backyard workshops and that sort of thing probably would break or breach those rules. But, you know, in many towns and cities in the United States and in Canada, it is legal. So you are not really supposed to, at least in most places, to rent it to third parties. So what has happened is a bunch of my clients, I've got clients in LA who are into this model in a huge way. I mean, these guys are going great guns. They're a bit older than you, Benji, but not much. And they love this model, and they're really, really good at it, and they make a lot of money at it. And so they're working out of Long Beach, and so they are in Long Beach. The rules are, if you have a tenant who is living here, he or she can rent that backyard workshop, no problem. But when you get to having, you know, these guys probably now are close to 30 of these, you know, 30 properties with, you know, 30 or even more than 30 workshops, backyard workshops. What you're going to find is that over time, somebody maybe 2 blocks down the road is going to come along, knock on your door and say, hey, Benji, you know, I'm a real estate investment and business coach. My wife is kicking me out of the house. Can I rent one of your backyard workshops to run my coaching practice? And Benji, unmute yourself for a second. What do you say when somebody, what do you say when somebody asks you that question?
Depends if you, I mean, most likely I would assume you probably wouldn't get in trouble, but maybe sometime people find out if you're doing something that's not in the zoning. So yeah, I guess it depends on your level of comfort with that.
So there's a thing called civil disobedience. All right. It was practiced by Mahatma Gandhi in India when he decided to kick the British out of India in the early post-war period. And, you know, the British had lots of big ships and lots of guns. And Mr. Gandhi and his followers did not have many, if any, guns. And so he was asked, how are you going to kick them out? And he said, I'm going to ask them to leave. And what he did was he asked people in India to go on strike and stop working for the Brits. And the Brits depended on local folks to make things happen, you know, to run the railroads and to dig ditches and make things happen. And without ever firing a shot, he kicked the British out of India. It's an incredible story. It's called civil disobedience. And listen, this gets beyond the ROI group, but in my opinion, if I came to you, Benji, I lived 2 blocks away and I needed a backyard workshop and you decided to rent it to me, who are we hurting?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so to me, it's a victimless crime. I'll probably put this in Twilight Zone now that you've asked the question, but who are we hurting? We're not hurting anybody. So speaking only for myself, because I can't coach people to break a bylaw, I certainly would do it. If it was reversed, if you were a coach and you needed a place and you lived a few blocks away, I'd say, yeah, sure. And somebody could, you know, somebody could dime us out. Somebody could rat us out. You know, every city has a 1-800 rat line. You know, you can rat people out. You know, it's terrible, really. But here's the other thing. I do have a workaround for it. And I'll share that with you guys. And then we're going to go on to the 70 fearless predictions. And I think Tim has already figured out what the workaround is. We've used it a couple of times where we have been in trouble. So what I would do, you know that Greeley workshop that that big honking thing that I showed you. What I would do is I would go to one of the tenants that's in the building, right? So on the ground floor of that, in that 1 bedroom, there's an older lady there. And she pays, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number, $1,000 a month for her 1 bedroom apartment. It's quite a nice apartment. I would go to her and I would say, how would you like it if I were to reduce your rent by $150 a month? And she might say, well, that's a great idea. I'm all in favor of that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to rent the backyard workshop. for, I don't know, $2,000 a month. And you're going to sublet it to those cannabis guys, right? Who are doing, the lab. That's called an augmented tenancy. So out of the $2,000 a month that they in rent, $150 would go to this lady just for being, basically a post office box. It's called augmented tenancy, and I have a legal opinion somewhere on my computer from a real estate lawyer that I like and trust saying that is legal. You can absolutely swear on a stack of Bibles. Look, it's a backyard workshop rented by one of my tenants. End of story. And if she sublets it to somebody, so be it. Do you understand?
Okay. The subletting by the tenant is different than just making it a commercial business for you.
I think so, and my lawyer thinks so, and and I think so. Did I say that twice? So then, anyway, that's what I think you can do, and I think that is a legal workaround. And again, Benji, it's not like we're taking a gun or a pistol and shooting people. That's a crime, a crime against humanity. We are providing a backyard lab for folks who live in the area, to do their important work.
I mean, I guess when you think people they turn their own garages into workshops, so it's not, it's not like it's totally a foreign concept for a neighborhood. But I guess the issue is, I'm not an expert in these things, but if you're not declaring it as a commercial thing, then maybe the taxes are different or something. I'm just kind of guessing.
I am not afraid of taxes. I know people don't like paying taxes. I get that. But to me, taxes are, my dad used to tell me, he was very proud to live in Canada. He loved this country. He really did. He said, be proud to pay your taxes in a country like Canada, but don't pay more than you have to. All right, so let's move on now. Benji, better mute yourself too in case somebody comes in and starts talking to you about something. All right, so here are 70 fearless future predictions. I'll try and get through that, and I won't keep you too long. And look, I wrote these originally, actually, last year. So when the pandemic really started to whack us pretty hard, not just Canada, of course, and it's still whacking us. People said, what's going to happen? And, I can't really tell you that I know any more than anybody else, but I said, I'll take a stab at it. 70 fearless future predictions and how to take advantage of them. So one of the things I think that is actually probably a good thing and probably will help us all is I think we're going to have a much more localized economy. And you'll see later on, just as an example of that farmland in Eastern Ontario for decades, the only people who ever called me about farmland were developers who wanted to, pave over paradise and put up a parking lot. That's all I got, call after call after call. But today is very different. I get calls all the time of people wanting to have micro farms, backyard homesteading, local production of food, etc. So I think we're going to see much more emphasis on, grow local, buy local, develop local, whatever you have. And going back to the gig economy that I talked about a few minutes ago, going back to the gig economy, I think I know we are repatriating industrial production at a fantastic rate right now in Canada and the United States. Our international partners, and that includes the United States and China and other nations, have proven to be unreliable during the pandemic. That is a lesson, especially for the young people on this call. So I think certainly I'm seeing it. I've got clients who run lathes and do prototyping and a million other industrial things. And demand for their services is off the charts, just off the charts, right? So I think as a real estate guy, you can take advantage of that. How do you do that? By building more workshops. I don't mean to be a broken record, but that's what I think is happening. Something else that I found very interesting is earlier this year, the Bank of Canada Governor raised his forecast for Canada's economy for growth this year from 4% to 6%. That is a huge jump. And he paid extensive compliments. You know, a governor of the Bank of Canada throws compliments around like sewer grates, right? They're very hard to get. But he said that Canadians are finding an incredible number of workarounds during this pandemic. Incredible. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have lost their jobs and a lot of businesses have failed and many people have died. But for those of us still around, you know, humans are endlessly inventive. And I think that increase, they expected a 4% rebound in the economy. It's going to be 6%. And that's because people are doing workarounds. Marginal businesses. We all know that there were lots of, you know, there was restaurants that where they were basically trading 4 quarters for $1. If you go down to the Byward Market, which is downtown Ottawa, you'll find one boarded up restaurant after another. That's sad for the people who put their lives into those restaurants, but it might actually be good for the economy. I hate to say it, and please don't blame me for saying it, but it might be good for the economy because those people who are basically just scraping a living might find more productive things to do with themselves, and they might actually be happier. Retail space, I don't have to tell you guys, I just said it a moment ago, is being decimated. So one of the things that I do, because I own some retail space, is I put 3 tests on all retail. If somebody comes to me and they want to rent a retail space from me, I look at 3 things. Are they pandemic resistant? Are they big box store resistant? And are they internet resistant? Just to give you an example, what does it mean to be internet resistant? You know, for example, if you're going to open a cafe and you're expecting people to come into your cafe and that's how you're going to make all your money, that's not pandemic resistant and it's not internet resistant. You have to have an internet presence. So if you were to want to operate a cafe in one of my buildings, I would want you to have a service window that opens to the outside so people could just pass by and you can serve them through that. I want you to have an outdoor patio, again, to be more pandemic resistant. But in addition to that, I would want you to have a significant internet presence, delivery by DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever, skip the dishes, right? That's what I would be looking for. And I don't care what kind of a use it is, they have to be have an internet presence because that's critical for their growth and sustainability. This is a floor plan of one of my buildings in Belleville. I bought a few buildings now in Belleville. This one is on Front Street, which is the main drag in downtown Belleville. And I just rented this space here, the lower bay, to Loyalist College, which is a local college, where they're going to put a startup incubator. So they'll have anywhere from 20 to 40 young and not so young entrepreneurs calling this home. And I got approved at the Committee of Adjustment, Belinda, believe it or not, I got it approved at the Committee of Adjustment 3 weeks ago to put a residential, 1-bedroom residential apartment at grade. Everybody said, oh, they'll never approve it, but maybe I can't do anything else, but I can talk. And I talked them into it and they thought it was a good idea and they approved it. So it means that that Loyalist College will run their incubator program here, and they can put an entrepreneur in residence here in the 1-bedroom apartment. And he or she can then walk through this internal corridor, and he or she can then provide some coaching. Because businesses and startups that are coached, mentored, tend to grow faster and survive longer. So having this micro suite, or it's actually a studio apartment, no, it's a 1-bedroom apartment, excuse me, at grade, really will help this program. And if you think about it, that's pretty much big box store resistant, right? Lowe's and Home Depot can't put the startup incubator out of business, nor can they provide, you know, living space, right? So it meets the tests. Then the middle bay here will be a cafe, which will serve the residences and the apartments above. It will serve everybody on the ground floor. It'll serve people passing by, etc. And this bay at the top here, I have no idea what it's going to be, but I have some thoughts about it, and it'll probably be some kind of artisan space, right? Because again, artisans, you know, my daughter makes funky clothing, right? And my friend there, Doug Lewis, makes cigar box guitars. I mean, so many cool things. And those people, again, are not going to get, you cannot put an artisan like Doug Lewis out of business if you're running Amazon. Amazon is a fabulous company, but they're not putting Doug out of business. Demand for office towers, I don't have to tell you that. If any of you guys are offered an office tower for free, turn it down. It would be a nightmare to own. Shopify decided not to reopen their headquarters. Shopify is a pretty big company now, worth tens of billions of dollars. Headquartered in Ottawa, they are not reopening their downtown office. They found work from home works great, right? So if I owned an office building today, what would I do with it? I would completely redesign it to be a live, work, shop, make, play, learn, socialize spot, right? So it would have apartments in it, it would have workspace in it, it would have play space in it, it would have learning opportunities in it, it would have socializing opportunities. It definitely would not be one humongous 40-story office building that, you know, with bad air and bad light. I just think these buildings, I always thought they were worthless, and now I'm sure of it. And again, here's another building. This is where we first started to work on this workshop idea. This was a 20,000 square foot workshop, warehouse with only 10-foot or 11-foot ceiling heights. And my clients divided it up into a bunch of little tiny workshops. The whole thing rented up. And the building went from being worth a few $100,000 to being worth close to $2 million in like 2.5, 3 years, because the income was so strong. So I just cannot tell you how much I believe in this model. I've talked about backyard homesteading already. And you know, remember my oldest son, Andrew, saying it's 1,000% ROI. The Europeans have known this for a long time. These are pictures I took in Pinhal in Portugal, and virtually every home had a backyard homestead. 1,000% ROI, according to Andrew. Look at this, and I told you that, you know, the only calls I got for farms were from developers who wanted to pay the damn thing over, and some people, like this company, I think it was based out of Ottawa, owned by the Kaminsky family. They started a company called Bonifield, which is kind of a nice name. And the only thing they did was acquire agricultural land for agricultural purposes. And I think the 30% increase in value is over the last year and a half. Like, that's incredible, right? So there you go. So there's some pretty simple business models. If you just get in at the right time, you buy stuff, hold on to it, goes up in value and produces income as well. What's this one here? This one I did not expect. I was asked at the beginning of the pandemic what would happen to you know, real estate prices, and I said I think home prices will hold their own because everybody needs a place to live. I said industrial will probably hold its own because we're going to reshore, I guess is the word, reshore industrial production. So I think it'll be steady. Office and retail is going to just fall through the floor. So I got 3 out of 4 right. Industrial held its own, office and retail went through the floor. But for some reason, house prices just went insane, insane. You know, there was panic buying, 30 offers per home. It was crazy, and I do not, as a buyer myself, I do not buy properties when there's 30 other bidders on it. I say, good luck, you know, you can buy that. That you make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell, so you have to buy smart. So why were homes going up so fast in price? Well, there was some panic buying. Not even sure why people would do that, but there was some panic buying, all right? Tim says it's still kind of crazy in Alberta, but in Ottawa, Tim, it has calmed down. But one of the reasons why I think, apart from just, you know, just being panicked, you know, people panic, you know, it's a very natural thing, is that we can blame our politicians. And there's a word I could use for it, but I can't use it in polite company. But politicians, you know, they have failed us. That, you know, my dad was one of the founders for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Back then it was called Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation. He was one of the founders. And if he were alive today, he would be some PO'd that Canada and the United States have failed to produce enough affordable housing. It's ridiculous. You don't think we know how to build houses? When we had millions of troops returning from overseas at the end of the Second World War, We built friggin' houses for them, lots of them, so that they could have a house to live in with their families. The fact that we're not doing that today is shameful. And for the young people on this call, Benji, EJ, and others, it's up to you guys to work with these politicians to correct this. So why are we having problems? Many of these cities in Canada and the United States have urban boundary freezes. It means they won't allow new lands to be converted to urban uses. Skill testing question, what happens when you restrict the supply of something, whether it's toilet paper or houses? What happens? EJ, unmute yourself. Give me the answer.
Sorry, Bruce, can you repeat the question?
It was a very easy question.
Sorry.
What happens when you restrict the supply of something like toilet paper or houses? What happens to the price?
It goes up.
It goes up. So you freeze the boundary of a city like Ottawa or Seattle or Portland or Boston or Austin, and then you wonder why young people cannot afford to buy a house. That's why. Politicians did that, and politicians should friggin' undo that. And we have an approvals process that is ridiculous. I sold 38 acres, excuse me, to a developer 10.5 years ago in Ottawa, in the official plan boundary, scheduled for development. It took them 10.5 years to get through the rezoning process, the site plan and subdivision process. They only this year did they start making their first dollar of income. 10.5 years. When I was EJ's age, I could do that in less than 11 months. In China, as long as you have the support of the Communist Party, you can do it in 6 weeks. Then I don't have to tell you about the rise in construction costs and materials and other factors. I said, as I said earlier, I really believe in small towns, investing in small towns within an hour or two of larger centers. This building on the right is a building I bought in downtown Belleville. It's 12,000 square feet. I bought it for $280,000 last year. That works up to $24 a square foot, not very much. And you can see that here are the fastest growing towns in the United States. You've never heard of any of them. Maybe you have, but I hadn't. Union Park, D'Iberville, Converse. I don't even know how to say that. Coldwater, Fishhawk, Fate, Prosper, Bluffdale, Florida Ridge. Those are not big towns. Demand for high-rise condominiums and apartments may moderate or drop. I really think that the idea of living in high-rise may not be the most attractive thing these days. You know, and I mean, look at what happened in Florida, right? I mean, this is absolutely a tragedy. And the reason I put this here is that, you know, if you live on the 50th floor of a building and there's a pandemic, you get sick just going down the elevator to get a liter of milk. And I also put this in here to tell everybody that if you're interested in real estate, great. But if you think there's no work and it's passive income, that is just not right. Every business, I don't care what business it is, including real estate, involves work, all right? And deferred maintenance, you can see it on the left-hand side of the screen here, is a killer of value and obviously a killer of people, right? So you cannot allow deferred maintenance on any of your buildings. That is like a rule, all right? Somebody asked me earlier in the chat box, what about backyard mini offices? I think somebody asked that. Well, here it is. I love these little backyard mini offices from, this is from Ferris, a company in Kingston, Ontario. They're only 8 by 12, 8 feet wide by 12 feet. So they're under 100 square feet. You don't even need a building permit for them. They're so well insulated, you can heat them with a light bulb, just about. And you can plop them in the backyard and rent them to your tenants as mini offices. They can, you know, if the kids are driving you crazy, rent a mini office, plop it in the backyard. And the cap rate on this is, excuse me, the cap rate on this is like unbelievable. I think it's like 30% or something like that. And I'm pretty sure, in terms of my fearless future predictions, that work from home, maybe work from home hybrid, is here to stay. So I think these backyard mini offices are cool. Obviously, you guys know this already. Everything that can be delivered to the home will be delivered to the home. And if you're interested in sort of stock market investing, you know, one of the ways you can take advantage of the renovation boom is obviously to buy a property yourself and renovate it, or you could buy stock in companies that supply these, you know, renovators. That seems like everybody's renovating these days. So you know, there are ways to benefit without necessarily having to, you know, actually do all the work that people like I do, you know, to buy property and renovate them, because that is a lot of work. I think this is an amazing change, and this was well before the pandemic, that I find that young people, millennials, my kids, many of them don't even have their licenses. I asked one of my youngest daughter, Jessica, to do a survey. It's not scientific, but she asked 32 of her friends how many of them own cars, and only 2 did, Jessica and one other. And then I said, can you go back and ask the same group how many of them actually have their driver's license? Only 4 did, right? So I think we're going to see a really, really different model in terms of urban development. Now, how do you take advantage of that if you're a real estate investor? It means, guys, you got to buy property that have good walk scores. If people are not going to own cars, you know, they can take Uber or Lyft, no problem, at least in towns that have those services. But walking to the drugstore, walking to you know, to shop is going to be very important. So there are free services out there that give you walk scores, and I look at those walk scores pretty carefully before I buy anything. And this thing at the bottom of the screen here blew my mind when I found out that the city of Edmonton, the oil capital of Canada, eliminated any and all parking requirements for new build. So if you built a, you know, 24, 48 unit apartment building and you didn't want to have any parking, Edmonton said, okay, that's up to you. If people don't rent your apartments because you don't have parking, tough luck for you. But if you don't have to provide, I just couldn't believe it. But it was bold, a very bold move. This is believe it or not, I built a CO2 generator years ago. Rick Mercer, who's a comedian, went on TV, and when I think Mr. Harper was Prime Minister, and he challenged Canadians to take the 1 ton challenge. See if you can find a way to save 1 ton of CO2. So I went on the Canadian government website that Mr. Mercer was promoting to see if I could, because I'm a Canadian, a good Canadian, I hope. I wanted to see what I could do to save 1 ton of carbon dioxide. I went through the whole darn website, and the only thing that I could find to save carbon dioxide was, they said, when your kids are brushing their teeth, turn off the hot water. Now that probably will save a few micrograms of carbon dioxide a year. Nowhere near a ton. So being an engineer, I said, well, the heck with this. This is just, it's called greenwashing. It was just total BS. So I invented a spreadsheet, and if you want it, I can send you a copy of it, where you put in where you live, how far from work you are, what type of car you drive, and it shows if you move closer to work, how much carbon dioxide you could save by not having to commute. And it turns out that if you went from sort of 30 kilometers to, say, I can't remember exactly what it was, 10 kilometers, if you say 20 kilometers each way, and for a mid-sized car, you'd save exactly 1 ton of CO2 a year. And if you ran a bigger car, you know, one of those fancy cars, it might be 7 tons of CO2. So we can do better as Canadians and as Americans and as people. And I think this work from home thing will really, really help reduce car trips and help reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Electric vehicle sales, I don't have to tell you guys this, it's self-explanatory. I could not believe this number. Tesla's market cap in December of 2020 was bigger than the 9 largest automakers combined. which shows you if you're on the right side of history, you can make real money. All right, what's this one? So I already talked about this. This is walk scores. This was just a random address. I think it's maybe one of my clients in San Francisco. And you can see he bought a lot in the Mission District. Walk score very high, transit score very high, bike score not so good, but really, really excellent. So you can do this, whatever you buy, see if you can get something with a decent walk score. I think most of you guys know about TaaS, Transportation as a Service. I think we are going to get there. I think we are going to get self-driving cars. I do think so. And it won't be long before you can whistle and your car will come running like the Lone Ranger with his horse. I can't remember what, Hi-Ho Silver. Yeah, Silver. He just, he'd whistle and Silver would show up and he'd jump on the horse and off he'd go. And what will happen is if I come to visit you and I have a self-driving car, I can have a little office there. It docks with my house. Maybe my office is in my car, and it undocks and drives around. I'm still working, doing stuff, docks with your house. Well, we talk to each other and, and then I come back. I do think this is coming and coming sooner than you might think. The implications are that if you're a truck driver, an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, a chauffeur, if you're selling new cars, there's going to be a lot of change, and car insurance. I know that self-driving cars will have accidents, but I suspect if we had an entire fleet of self-driving cars, the number of people who die and are injured horribly on our roads would actually drop. There'd still be some. It won't be perfect, but it will be that. So if you're in the insurance industry, be prepared. There are going to be some changes. Now the question is, what's going to happen to public transit? How would you guys like to be running public transit in New York when what's the big market they're called? Anyway, the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange announced that they wanted everybody to come back to work, but if you took a taxi or you took public transportation, they wouldn't let you in the building. You had to have your own vehicle. Right? So I think transportation as a service and Uber and Lyft and some of these other certainly self-driving cars, it's going to be tough to see how public transit will fare in the future. I don't know, but it might be quite a tough situation. Here's another thing. I find this really interesting, and that is that parking garages and parking lots used to be worth more than oil in the ground. And I used to own a townhouse condo, which had a large underground parking space. 15 years ago when I first bought it, you'd go into that underground garage, which was like 3 levels, and every single space would be taken. And if you wanted a space, you'd have to go on a waiting list. Today, if I walked you through that same garage, half the spaces are empty. Young people are not driving. Older people are not driving. So what would I do with these underground parking garages? You got it. I would turn them into workshops. It'd be a hell of a lot more profitable and useful. Imagine if you had a 30-story apartment building and you had half empty or 3/4 empty parking garage. You could put a lot of workshops down there. And again, you would then improve your bottom line, your cap rate, and you'd have tenants who are happier. They have an apartment, which is a liability, and they'd have a workshop, which is an asset, and they'd stay longer. So this stuff has quite widespread implications. I don't have to tell you about this. We've already dealt with it endlessly. Backyard workshops is a great business model. The next thing that is coming, and you already may realize it's here, is artificial intelligence. For those of you who are subscribers to Microsoft Office 365, they just call it Office 365 now. If you look at, you just open a Word document and there's a little help box here. That help box is in fact a piece of artificial intelligence. You can put in there just about anything. When is my wife's birthday? And this little piece of AI is unbelievable because it communicates back to the mothership, and the mothership puts all of this together. And at least in terms of operating Excel or operating PowerPoint or operating Microsoft Word, it's a really good piece of AI. Try it yourself if you haven't already tried it. So we are in for a real change in the economy, and our productivity, is pretty good now. It's going to be huge in the future. If you're interested in electric cars and electrification of just about everything, and you want to make investments and you don't want to buy Tesla stock at its top, you can look for other things to invest in, like battery makers. This is something else that, in terms of building a business model for a personal business for life, that's really important. I can't stress this enough, and that is adding differentiated value. I say that over and over again when I coach somebody in real estate, but also in tech and in any kind of business. What is your differentiated value? What makes you different from your competitors? I wanted to give you this example. This is Lululemon. During the pandemic, when everybody was locked inside, they bought the mirror. The mirror is something you can prop up against the wall, as this young woman is doing, and you can take courses in yoga or whatever. And presumably, because it's owned by Lululemon now, every once in a while you could try on virtually try on a new outfit. I do yoga and try on a new yoga outfit. So Lululemon, I think has, I could have this wrong, I think they have 40 million subscribers to the mirror. So you buy the mirror for $2,000, that's an expensive mirror. And then you buy $35 or $39 a month membership. So if you have, I'll just make up a number. Say you have 10 million subscribers times, say $40. That's like $400 million a month in committed monthly recurring revenues. So the idea is to combine things that you would not normally see together in ways that create new options. And you remember I talked about the mini storage business and the Airbnb. Who knew that would be a great combination, right? Combine this with that. Look for things that you might think aren't related, bring them together, and you create something new. That's what Lululemon did. And you can see what happened to their stock. It went up by 36.6% in the immediate aftermath of buying the mirror. If you want to be successful in any business, you got to remember two words: customer service. In my business as a coach, if I do nothing other than answer my emails, my messages, and my texts, I'll probably have some success. Now, you might think, well, that's obvious, except it isn't. Have you ever tried to call a contractor, a plumber to come and fix your toilet? He says, oh yeah, I'll be there Tuesday at 2. Tuesday at 4, you're calling him, where are you? Doesn't call you back. You try him again Wednesday, try him again Thursday. Finally on Friday, you get him, oh yeah, I'll get to it. But sir, my toilet is plugged. Yeah, I said I'll come tomorrow, Saturday. Yeah, at noon. Doesn't show up. If you haven't had that experience, I'm surprised. So this is a company called Zappos. It was run by Tony Hsieh. Unfortunately, he passed away very young. I think it was a tragedy, really. Brilliant young man. And Zappos prides itself on customer service. And a lot of businesses, try calling your bank, your credit card company, your communications provider. Often it's not a very happy experience. With one of my credit cards, I had to call them 11 times to get them to change my address. I was getting in trouble for not paying my bill. This is back when you had to get the bill through the snail mail. So on the 11th call, I said, why is it that I had to call American Express 11 times to get my address changed? Well, the lady was very nice. She said, well, we have a legacy computer system, and sometimes we put the information in and it doesn't take. It just kind of doesn't take. I said, well, here's what's going to happen. I've been a member of American Express for 25 years. This is my last call. If you can't get it right this time, I'm just going to cut my card up and I'll cancel it. So there you go. Customer service is really important. And Zappos has believed in that from the first day that Tony walked inside. And Amazon bought this company mostly because of its culture of funky customer service, putting the customer first. It's a forgotten art, but don't forget it. Oops, sorry. Branding. I want to talk a little bit about branding, and I'm going to end in about 5 minutes, so you guys, I won't get through all of it today, but I'll get through some of it. Why does branding matter? Let me talk about real estate. I've got, again, my mini storage client, the national client that's based in North Vancouver. They've got, lots of storage places. And I have to tell you that their branding could be better. And in one particular place, they have some storage buildings and whatever, and they have some extra land, and they've allowed the extra land to go wild. It looks like crap, right? And I said, look, if you do nothing else, just cut the grass, because branding is so important. And I can't remember how many companies I've asked over the marketing companies, marketing gurus who know a lot more about marketing than I do. Why is branding important? And they always say the same, well, it's obviously important to have a good brand. I said, well, I understand that. I'm not saying no, but why? And what they tell me is that branding's important because it's important. It's a circular argument. And I thought about it for like 2 decades. That's how stupid I am, until I finally figured it out for myself. The reason that branding matters is that branding creates a level of trust. So if, EJ, if you and I started a company called EJ and Bruce's Best Sandwiches in the World, and we had the best sandwiches at the best price in the whole world, and we had a little store there that was really, really great. And there was a Subway a block away. The number of people who would drive by EJ and Bruce's great sandwich shop to go to Subway would be incredible, because Subway has a brand. Whether you like it or not, it's a brand that's trusted. Nobody knows EJ and Bruce. So branding is very important, whether it's real estate or it's anything else, any kind of business. You've got to have a great brand, and here's why. You build a great brand, it creates a level of trust. Trust creates an opportunity to sell. Sales creates, money. It generates funds that you can do more marketing. Marketing builds your brand. It's a circle, right? Branding, trust, sales, money, more marketing, better brand. And it's just as true in real estate. And I'll give you an example of that. On all of the buildings that I own, we do not allow any of our tenants to put any kind of window covering up. We always put blinds on our windows, nice ones too. Usually just white blinds, but nice ones. Reason for that is that if we don't, some students will put a marijuana flag up. Others will just put an orange bed sheet up. Somebody else will put, frilly, lacy, funky things up there. And from the street, your buildings will start to look really bad. That's part of your brand. Most people don't think real estate should have a brand. Yes, it should. All right. So there you go. So branding is very important. Okay, this will be, I think, the last one that I'll do, because I'm getting tired. And you're probably getting tired of me. So you've all heard about a K-shaped recovery. And I think this is very real. That some people coming out of this pandemic are going to do extremely well, and some people are going to go right through the floor. There are going to be more homeless people. There's going to be more drug addiction and other social issues coming out of this pandemic, for sure, in my opinion. So what I want you guys to be is I want you to be on this part of the curve, not this part of the curve. And how do you make sure that you're on this part of the curve instead of this part of the curve? To me, the most important thing is to be open to learning new things. The difference between an old person and a young person isn't the number of times you've been around the sun. I've been around the sun 69 times, soon to be 70. I'll be 70 this year. And so I'm old. But I know old 30-year-olds, and I know young 80-year-olds. And the difference is that the 80-year-old is still open to learning new things, and the 30-year-old says, hey, I'm good, I know everything. You can't teach me anything, I know everything. Because virtually every single person on this call will have 5 or 6 careers in his or her lifetime, maybe more. I probably had 12. And some of them worked really well, and some of them did not work at all. And so you have to remember what my dad said to me when I was young. You dump the winners and you dump the losers and you keep the winners. And he was right. So if you have something that's not working, you have to have the strength of purpose in mind to say, holy smokes, this isn't working. I'm going to stop doing this. And if something is working, oh my gosh, this is working. I'm going to do more of this. This is good, right? And to keep yourself on that upward part of the K, you have to be into and committed to lifetime learning. And everybody on this call, I know, is already doing that, because you wouldn't be on this call otherwise. So I think that's a good part to stop. I hope you enjoyed it. There will be a replay at some point when I get to it. I put these on YouTube, usually unlisted, but I think this one I'm going to make public. And I'll send it to you guys. So if you ever wanted to watch it again, or if you wanted to share it with your friends, because it will be public, you can do that. And listen, I really thank you all for putting up with me today. Usually I have guests, but today you had to put up with me. So I'll say goodbye to everybody and have a really great rest of the summer. Make every day count. I love you all.